Okay, so hello everybody. Uh, Finally, welcome to this open table and this special project that Christine Massel, this year's curator, wanted for this Biennale. With this occasion of having a lunch and a talk with the artist. Our guests today are the two youngest artists exhibiting at the Biennale this year in the main exhibition, Katherine Nuñez and Issay Rodriguez. So welcome. Thank you for coming from Manila expressly for this open table. And I want to welcome also all our guests for coming. It is a lunch also, so please eat. Don't feel shy because we have microphones and video recording. And Katherine Nuñez and Issay Rodriguez are exhibiting here at the Central Pavilion, in the Pavilion of Artists and Books, right? Your work is an installation, a very particular installation. It is called the In Between the Lines 2.0. And it is a sort of private room with a desk with a lot of books on it, and all pencils and staples and things. But it is not real books. They are all fabric books, crocheted papers, paper clips, etc. So tell us something about this installation. Why did you do it? How it was? How the idea? How did you get the idea? And what you wanted to say with it?
Do you want to start?
Too many questions in one.
Well, actually, the project we started it in when we exhibited in Art Dubai, because Issay and I are both members of an art initiative in Manila, 98B. And 98B was part of the marker show under Art Dubai. I think that was last year.
Yeah, 2015.
2 years ago. And the installation we did was the same as the one here, just smaller. And that show was curated by Ringo. And it was a show that focused on alternative spaces in Manila. And 98B was an alternative space. It's the same installation, just smaller. People can still touch them. And that was where Christine saw our work. And then after a few months, we were invited to participate in the Biennale. But actually, the whole idea of making these sort of objects started in 2014. Maybe you can talk about it.
Yeah, actually we. Why is it so loud? Okay, so actually we developed our work separately, and then mine was the oldest piece in the show was in 2000 made in 2012, and then we showed together in a group show in 2014, and the show was called Objection. That's where we first thought about making objects, divorcing them from their original function. Hers are the crocheted works, and then mine are the soft sculptures. So,
The show was entitled Objection. So basically, the show was about creating objects without divorced from their functions. So like for me, I created everyday objects you see in your house, like an electric fan or a clothes iron. But the process used with them, well, these objects are usually mass-produced. But for me, what I did was I used crochet as a process because it was labor-intensive, very different from how it's produced usually. So these objects, they imitate the real thing, but they're actually useless. So by removing the function, you're sort of creating an object that's for that focuses on the labor, because crochet is very labor intensive, and it requires a long period of time to create. And hers was actually the books, fabric books.
Okay, but in that show, if I remember well, you were exhibiting both in the show but individually, right?
Yes.
So when did you already know each other, or did you meet each other on that show, or when did you meet each other?
We were actually never friends in college, but we went to the same school. And I think this was the first time we worked together, this show under 98B Collaboratory. So I guess it's actually a good way of um, continuing your art practice after school, because even if you were in the same school, you don't know each other, you don't get to work with each other. And then after that, 98 became, and then we had an opportunity to work with each other, when free to experiment on things that we haven't really done before. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And tell us something. What is, because I don't think most people here know, what is exactly 98B Collaboratory?
Okay, 98B Collaboratory is an artist-run space and initiative. We're located in Manila, in Escolta Street, and though we were basically trying to show artworks in a different form, different from the white gallery space. So it can be in a form of a talk or a simple gathering like this one, like an artist talk over meals. We want art to be more accessible and be more casual to people.
Yeah, be more part of our lives.
So that's basically what we do there.
Okay, and how many artists are there? Are they all young artists? Are there?
Okay.
We come from different backgrounds, and right now I think we're 9. Yeah. And
Actually, the number changes because every year there are people we invite to be part of the initiative. And like Issay said, we come from different backgrounds. So some of us are writers, but curators, but most of us are artists.
So is it something new on the
In the
Philippine art scene,
Well-
or are there different kind of of these kind of collectives, or sort of spaces where artists gather, which are different from, of course, exhibiting in galleries? Or
There are quite a few right now, actually. I
maybe
think
20 plus.
20 plus. Because, well, we haven't actually, we actually don't know other alternative spaces outside of Manila, but there are other existing spaces. I think it's because artists are trying to look for other forms to present artworks to people without like institutions, etc.
yes, eat also. So you exhibited together in the show Objections, and then how did you decide to work together?
For Art Dubai, actually, Marika Constantino chose the works and the artists, but actually one of the main considerations was to choose works that were representative of each of the programs of the collaboratory. So maybe it's our work actually reflects maybe the PAN project space
And also the library.
and the library.
Okay, so you started working, and how did the whole process of working, because a collaborative work is not always easy, or it is very, I think it is very different from working
Alone.
alone. So how did the whole thing work? How did you work together? Also, because I know you share also a space where you live together. Did that come after the work? Was it was it a sort of consequence of having to work together?
Actually, that was before. We were living together. Way before we
Joined
got
Art Dubai.
and collaborated.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it was because we were members of 98B that we were able to like work together. Because if it weren't for it, we wouldn't be able to meet one another and work as comfortably as we do. But well, certainly there are perks of working collaboratively. Like it's different when you're working alone because when you're talking to someone, you're sort of like conversing and you're generating these new ideas. But then, of course, artists also usually work alone. So there are times that most of the time actually we worked separately. But then there were most days that we would consult each other, and because she's just in the other room, I could just go.
And how did you get the idea of doing this private room? Where does it come from? Because there are a lot of different layers actually there. There's a sort of a critique maybe of the education of learning, etc. But there's also this thing about sewing and stitching, which comes from maybe women and also traditional sort of work, which is in a certain sense is not so à la mode today. I mean, a lot of people are all about technology today, and there are a lot of artists who do video makers, interactive things that use technology. So it's a sort of going back.
I think for both of us, it's actually a bit organic thing to do. Maybe it's also an unconscious effort to balance out our life. I mean, like you're so immersed with like digital things or every day or on your phone watching any. I mean,
especially in Manila.
yeah, or so sometimes you're just drawn to things that maybe could bring you back to like holding stuff and spending time.
Also because these days life is too fast, like because of technology, like time is like it, it moves more fast. So we have like this interest of like going slow. So like crochet is like a slow craft. Like it takes a lot of time and focus. And as for the education part, I think Issay and our works are autobiographical, meaning we get inspiration from um, our lives, so what we know, what we understand, and of course we were students before, so we know how the educational system in the Philippines work, and also because back in the Philippines, the both of us also teached, so the inspiration from the work mostly came from those.
Yeah, I forgot the question. You said it's a slow thing. It's a very slow thing. How long did it take you to make it? Because there is a really great amount of work there.
Yeah,
because if you go close by, you can see really how much work there is.
for both of us, it's almost half a year for most of the works because some were like carried over from older exhibitions, so maybe more than half a year.
And where did you learn? Because is it something that you learned in art school, or is it something that you learned at home because it's a tradition?
Well, crochet and embroidery and sewing is definitely familiar and very everyday, like you see them in houses. But for me, I learned crochet when I was in grade school. It was part of our curriculum in home education. And of course, my mom knows how to crochet also, so I'm very familiar with it.
Anybody else wants to participate? We don't want to keep this a conversation between me and our artist. Could you? I would just ask you kindly to use the microphone, because otherwise, on the other side of the table, nobody can hear.
Um, Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Magandang hapon naman po.
Hello.
So my two questions really, I'm hoping, relate to each other. In terms of the sewing tradition, would you identify it as a more modern take on traditional sewing traditions? And if so, where is it located? Is the sewing tradition located geographically? Because the Philippines is a very diverse culture. There's the old way of doing it, and there's the Spanish way of doing it, and there's the American way of doing it. So in what way do the threading and then the related question is, the thing about what I remember about the Philippines is that it's fast and smoggy, and you know, just lots of new subways where subways never used to be. So could you relate that kind of city life to your idea of slowness? So those are the two questions.
Well, definitely there's a tradition of embroidery in the Philippines. We have sewing tradition in our traditional clothes. Like we have the baro.
The barong Tagalog.
But well, I guess for us, well, for you,
I think I don't want to look at it as a modern way or a new take of using the material, because I think it would be unfair for those who came before us, because I think it is a timeless thing that we could also, it's for everyone, I mean. So I guess it's not really a matter of like taking something old for new use, because it's never, it was never old. I mean, it's for everyone. It's for across all ages. And it's something we could share with everyone, our homes. It's very familiar.
also I think maybe because sewing, in terms of like fine art, it's not it's an unusual material to or process to use.
Sometimes they consider it a craft.
Yeah,
It's a craft, yeah.
More decorative.
Even though I think that in your work it's a sort of you use craft as a technique for making art.
I think that kind of approach is very interesting. Like you're going beyond what is considered traditional. So there are people like me ask, like, is this art? Because I have this at home. But those kind of commentaries are interesting, because then you know that the idea of art that people have are getting challenged and also changed over time. And as for the second question, we definitely feel that Manila is a fast-paced city, because I think for Filipinos in Manila, like being modern is like defined when there are like skyscrapers or like subways, but and so we definitely feel that every day, because we have to go through that, and I think it's exhausting sometimes, like when you have to go to work or you have to go to school, you have to go to the train, you have to commute, and it's all very fast. And sometimes you just need some time for yourself to just slow down and focus. So I think crochet and embroidery are like very helpful with this. Like,
Yeah, you know, she actually brings her work sometimes and like crochets inside the public
in the train.
transportation. I mean, I think sometimes why is she not looking at? She's not talking to me. I can't enjoy the traffic. And then she's like doing, okay. Oh no, she
Also,
has a
the
pen.
thing with
Did you do it also on the 20-hour flight to get here?
well, I didn't know if I could bring that in the plane if it's allowed.
No sharp objects.
You talked to her.
What?
So you talked to her this
Yeah.
time.
Yes.
Yeah, a bit and watch movie.
Hello, I'm just here,
Hello.
and thank you for being here. Two questions. What was your background like? What sort of families did you come from? And what inspired you to go to art school?
Maybe you answer first.
Um, my mother is an English teacher. She also teaches in the same school where I studied before college, and my father is CPA. He's an accountant. So I guess it indirectly my mother has influenced my work. I mean, I never meant to make um, um, something that talks about her directly or in homage of her, but I think that it was organic that it came out of the work. That maybe that was the influence. Also, I also started becoming an artist. I also started being interested at making art or visual objects because my mother was a teacher, so she asked me to make visuals for her students and make big works like for the student community. So I guess that's that's the very core of where I came from to make art or visual things.
And as for me, my father is a civil engineer, and my mother, she's a housewife, but she's very practical. And I think it's the same with me for Issay. Like, most of my influence in craft work came from her. Like, when I was young, I remember that she crocheted me these pieces of clothes for me to wear, and so it's very usual for me, the crochet. And what was the second question?
And what inspired you to go to art
Ah,
school?
okay. Well, I actually graduated from a science high school, so meaning it's a high school that focused on science and math subjects. So it's
So you wanted
It's
something
very
that was
different.
opposite.
yeah. Actually, I knew how to draw when I was young, but when I was in high school, like I realized, like, okay, I can study, but I won't be happy with this. So I already somehow know what I wanted to do.
Thank you.
For me, I think when I was young, I already knew the answer, but the question was only how. I mean, how could I like reach that um, abstract idea of living as an artist? I mean, I guess when you're young, you don't know. I mean, at least for my case, I don't know a lot of contemporary artists when I was young. So I only figured out my way while I was studying in the college fine arts.
Well, congratulations being the youngest.
Thank you.
It's wonderful work too. Um, the name of the work is 2.0, and so I was curious to see 1.0, the one in Dubai, and I found different images for that. That the catalog for Marker has a collection of the objects without being an installation yet. And I found a picture that looks a lot like this, just a smaller installation, but the catalog for the Biennale has an image where there's a girl, there's a doll,
Yeah.
which is part of the installation. And clearly, in that case, the implications of what you're talking about, the educational system, are much easier to access, maybe, but maybe the work becomes closer. So I wonder about the process, about that human presence that you had at some point and now you have removed, how that came about, and the evolution from 1.0 to 2.0 in that sense.
Too difficult a question. Okay. They are only 25. I mean, they reach this great.
I know they have the answers. It's just that they're trying to decide who's gonna answer it.
Are you like asking how?
Well,
2.0?
I mean, was there the doll? Was there in Dubai? Because I saw an image without the doll and another image with the doll. Which one?
Doll? Ah, the doll?
Yeah, there's a girl, right? There's
It's
a,
a real girl.
Oh,
a real
it's a girl.
It's a
It's
human
a
girl.
there's a human figure that is
Yeah.
part of the
Yeah.
installation. I mean, she's smashed against the desk. and
No,
makes-
the human girl is a real human girl.
Yeah, I get.
Because people are able to actually touch the works in our Dubai.
So that was a visitor to the exhibit.
Yeah,
Yes.
I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got confused. So
All right,
actually,
so I get it. So the image in the catalog shows a human figure that is on the desk, but that's the real person
Yeah.
who's visiting. Okay.
okay, I guess we also found the photo interesting to depict the work, because I think that's also what we want the work to be like. It's accessible, people can touch it, and I think that photo of the girl enjoying the work was a nice thing to.
Yeah, and I think it's also a bit. I don't know the English word fuorviante, because also I believe that the installation here was also supposed to be sort of interactive, that people could go in and turn the pages of the books, look. Only the problem is that with an exhibition like the Biennale, where you have some 600, 700,000 visitors in a year, it would be completely destroyed. So it is not, unfortunately, possible to interact. But the idea, I think, was the interaction, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. So it should have been like in Dubai, where the visitors could actually sit down and maybe turn the pages, move the books, etc.
Actually, in the opening for
Yeah.
a week, it was
Yeah.
allowed.
Yeah.
But then
And then
after
probably
that,
things happened.
had to change.
Paper clips disappeared as a sort of souvenir of the work.
No, it's okay.
So you had all these things stacked up against you. You're the youngest artist here. It's your first Biennale. You're part of these alternative art organizations. You're working collaboratively. You're using sewing, crocheting in your art practice. But after a few weeks of your art being here, it was acquired by the German luxury goods company Mont Blanc. So what was that like for your experience to have your work be acquired so quickly, so soon? And then also to follow up with that, part of that transaction is also they will help fund for another temporary art exhibition of yours, whether it be a Biennale or an art festival. So do you have ideas already of what you want to do for your next art exhibition? Or what are you guys thinking about on that right now?
I didn't know that.
Well, actually, for the Mont Blanc, they have an organization, the Mont Blanc Cultural
Cultural
Foundation, and they mostly fund or support artists, young artists, in realizing their works. So for us, before we got here in the Biennale, before we were chosen, we were poor. So we didn't have the funds to produce the work. So
In that scale.
so we had to find a sponsor. So luckily for us, it was a cultural foundation. So we were lucky enough to be supported by them. And one of
It was actually the team of Christine Marcel who linked us to them. So we are very happy that they have supported our work, because if not, it wouldn't be possible that we're also here or for the opening, and we were able to fly like 10,000
Because one of the
from
struggles
Manila.
of being an artist in the Philippines is the funds for the arts are limited. So we had to look elsewhere, and so we were very lucky to have been sponsored by the Mont Blanc. But actually, well, for me at least, I don't really know what I'm gonna do next. Maybe, um, actually, the whole event of being part of a Biennale is so overwhelming for me, and I've
And
been,
for me.
and also for us actually, like we've been working on it for like almost half a year. So maybe I'm not sure. I'm thinking, at least for the both of us, we would still be working in 98B and just, I don't know, go with the flow, whatever happens. What?
Can you please have?
Where would you show something like your work in the Philippines? Would it be like universities or your own school? Or if you were going to show this
If
kind of work in the
hypothetically,
This work?
yeah,
Okay. Could be anywhere. Um, Maybe it would be nice to share it with the school where we came from, or with the with the community where our where 98B Collaboratory is currently based.
are there curators or that would be interested in this kind of on your work in general?
I guess yes.
I hope so.
You hope so.
What I mean is, would you be able to identify some of them for us who would like to learn more about the work that you do? Because at the Biennale, we come here to identify works of different artists like you. And if it were not here, we would not meet you right now. So if regular people would like to see your work in the Marikina or some other place, where would they go?
You can visit our studio.
You can visit our studio. Well, at the moment, we're part of a gallery. We're not currently represented by a gallery. So, well, although, well, I guess that's a good thing also because
You're free.
we're freer. But for us, our works, you can usually see us in 98B working, but we usually also exhibit there. Maybe because the space is more, how do I say this, more casual.
Yeah, intimate space, very small, very encouraging for small conversations and yeah, small
I think
parties.
initiatives, alternative spaces offer spaces that are more open to the public. So that's more interesting because you don't know how people would react. And it's very nice sometimes to like know that normal people, passersby, see your work and like notice them.
There's
Yes. In the wall panel, there seemed to be a critique of the traditional art education, and that perhaps art schools had seen their day come and go, and that there was some other venue for an artist to develop the work and come to an understanding of what is it the artist does in the world. Was your experience once you left school, so because you stated painting, so as a painter who becomes an installation artist, was that transition post school?
Actually, it was during school.
During school, I guess sometimes the words are or the names that we label the things get left behind, and along the way that they evolve. We started as painting majors, but while we were studying, we felt like we were also very excited about doing things in different way or a different manner. But the I guess it's fair also to say that we still retain the a painter's sensibility, because sometimes we also tend to make three-dimensional works, but still retaining the sensibilities of a painter.
But also because of the nature of our major, because actually our major in college is the painting major is under the course of studio arts.
Yeah.
So for instance, painting majors and sculptor majors are under studio arts. So we sort of we share
Yeah, we
subjects. So actually, during our undergraduate years, we also have um, um, sculptural works that we need to do for class. So it was easier for us to actually transition or create artworks that are not painting.
It was more free.
Yeah, just
But
very fluid.
one question: do you always work with this kind of technique, or what? I think you use also different mediums,
Yeah.
at least.
At least, but at least for now, we usually do craft works.
Okay.
Yeah,
But-
or different things.
We
Yeah,
do
but
different things.
not speaking of the work exhibited at the Biennale. What kind of other works do you do? What major other techniques do you use?
For me, I, al- I also do like cyanotype printing and graphite drawing. So I guess the two are, I mean,
Very
ve-
different.
Very different. but but of course, I think it's also important to mention that the first time that I thought about this work was like 5 years ago. But I found myself having to do it while I was also developing a work that I wanted to like still do until now. So, but I guess it's important to say that after after all, I mean, it's although they are very different, I'm coming from uh, um, uh, uh, the same core. I mean that sort of desire to move towards the laborious modes of making, like drawing and analog printing, like cyanotype printing, or this one. I mean, it's embroidery. Yeah, but I also recognize that the benefits of like having technology, and that's also part of developing my work. It also goes through that process, but it marries, and it makes me find the balance between the two.
Well, for me, I also do collage work and other installation works, but usually for me, I like incorporating objects or techniques that are very domestic or everyday. Um, Maybe because I'm more interested in like using materials or techniques that are not traditional or like people don't consider fine art, because it's I like um, um, I like how these things are familiar and so are much more accessible to other people or the nor or our everyday lives.
A question regarding the exhibition here. You had the chance to see many other artists here at the Biennale and countries. So I would like to know from you if you found anything special or characteristic, and how you see Italian art, for example, Italian artists. Is it something very far from your sensibility, or is it something you can feel close to?
Well, for us, our art education in the Philippines is Western. So we have backgrounds in contemporary art in the West and also traditional art. So it's not we're not very divorced from it. But of course, when we got here, we're also excited to see them because before we only got to see them in books.
Yeah,
But
it's
right
different
now, like,
when you see it
oh no,
in
Kiki Smith
person.
is just across the room. I only reported about her in class. So it's all very exciting.
Yeah, hello. Thank you for the intervention. I just have a simple remark concerning labor-intensive work, which is, I think, quite very curious what you said here about crochet, and I think that, curiously enough, most people, consumers, because you were drawing this distinction between fast technology and slow manual work with crochet. Very few consumers realize how labor-intensive it is, how labor-intensive is behind the making of an iPhone, for instance. This involves collaborative work in all continents, mining rare earths, at least 50 elements of the periodic table. And I think there will be plenty of scope for explaining to young people at schools what is involved in bringing out technology these days, also with the social aspects of it. You know, the labor, cheap labor in China or the Philippines or Brazil or whatever. But thank you for your remarks, because I think this was very interesting. Because the crochet thing seems very obvious, that it's labor intensive. But the smartphone doesn't look very labor intensive, I think.
I would like to follow up on that because that opens up the question. I'm sure you're very familiar from art school with Baudrillard and his work. There was a French intellectual who spoke about our world being a world of signs, and that we don't have real things anymore, that everything is a sign, like an iPhone could be a sign for something to communicate, but it's not really a communication device. So your work is really wonderful in that many visitors go in there and they don't realize that the books are not real books. And then they think, oh, these are fake books. But actually, your books, I think they really captured being real books in that they have knowledge, they have labor, they have love, and that makes them true books. So tell us more about that. You know, what kind of thinking there is in your work when it comes to this entire philosophy or science and reality?
I guess it's still a book, but it's not the book that was the book. I mean, once I did each of them, I guess I was thinking about a particular book, but I actually just used it to write my own. So I guess it's also valid if someone still calls it a book, or still finds knowledge in it, or still find that the information could be useful to them in some way.
Okay. So I was interested in your concept of this particular art piece, and also I was thinking about what you said about how it's slow work, and how you were talking about the modern world. And there's also, and I'm very particularly interested in how you chose education and studying for your subject. And so I'm interested in where you were going with that, but also for me personally, it made me think that in this new modern world, even the world studying has changed and it's faster, and maybe it needs to slow down as well. And I just wanted to know what you thought, well, where you were going with it in your concept.
Well, like we said before, our works are autobiographical, so it came from our experiences. So maybe because, well, at least for my work, the idea actually of creating paper originated when I was in school, and it was an interesting story actually. I was enrolled in a class where we were required to create papers. So I don't have a background with that. So it was very laborious for me to do. I had to read a lot of books, and I had to practice my writing. And I had to create a lot of drafts for that paper, and it was really frustrating for me. And the system has this like standard of like what they want to see, and sometimes the labor that you do as a student learning as opposed to studying, because when you're studying you're like following a system, or you have to like create a product, but when you're learning it's more personal and organic, and it's just frustrating for me sometimes that it gets blindsided, or it gets ignored, like the labor that you do when you're learning, it's not accepted. So there was this time like maybe I should just I thought that maybe I should just crochet a paper and pass it to her. And then it happened like this. But also because as I've mentioned, I was also a, a teacher in the Philippines. Actually, both of us taught in the same university also. And one thing I also realized from teaching is that you have to be very patient with your students, because otherwise it will be very stressful for them, because I understand that subjects right now have to rush everything. So that's one thing that I learned when I was teaching also. Yes.
I know one of you also have an experience from the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris, right? What difference is there? Is there a difference between the art teaching in the Philippines and the one at the Beaux-Arts?
I guess it's not that far. I mean, I also think that I didn't have enough time to say that it's to tell.
How long
one
were
from-
you there?
I was just there for a semester because it's part of the exchange student program between our universities, and I was sent by the University of the Philippines to be there before I finished my thesis project in my school. So I guess I just noticed that maybe in here in Bozat we were just mostly left alone by ourselves. I mean, it was more free. I mean, I think maybe just because of my setup, because I was an exchange student. Yeah, but I guess it's almost just the same.
One comment for Issay, I think. When I was a little girl and when my children were littlies, we had beautiful cloth books. And when I looked at your books, I felt that that's kind of your first book as a child is of that cloth material. And I suppose that's more of an observation. But also I was very interested in your eye chart. Was that an eye chart I saw? Like with different size letters? It's difficult to tell. But
Yeah.
yeah.
But it was a modified version.
A modified version
Yeah,
of an eye chart.
which you can test your eye.
Exactly, and that's very important in my family. I had a son that had vision problems, and the eye chart is very much part of our lives. That I think we should be able to memorise them. My other question was, I was in Dubai recently and met a Filipina lady who said there are 1 million at least Filipinas in Dubai. Is that the connection? Did you go to see your exhibition in Dubai, and what was that experience like?
Okay. We both weren't in Dubai when the works were shown, so we weren't there. But actually, while you were mentioning about fabric books being like books given to children, I think I'd like to show you something. This
my
is
gosh, in
from
her
my
bag.
parents.
Oh,
I mean, yeah. I mean, look, Mom. No, I asked them if I could bring it. So, I mean, sometimes I find it hard to express myself. So, I wanted to show it to you.
beautiful. Sure. Is it a?
Show it to everybody. Other way around.
Okay.
Did your mother make it?
No, it's older than me actually. It's 28 years old. So it's a gift from a friend of my parents when they were newly weds. So when I was a child, this thing lied around the house, and this I think it's one of the first things that I read. I mean, before books, and then I think this was one of the objects that that had stick with me when I was thinking of making hybrid objects when I was in college. So that's where the idea came from, like making a hybrid out of two common objects, which was a book and pillowcase. Yeah, a pillow. Yeah.
Going off of the theme of education, I know both of you guys went to art schools and you guys both taught. And so what do you think is the most ideal or the best kind of art education that can be given to students?
Good question, difficult to answer.
No, I guess I think it should start with the question: what kind of artist does the school want to produce? I mean, I guess we come from a school where it's highly like the curriculum tends to be more Western. Do we agree?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess I think also with the way that education is also transforming in the Philippines, like we would like to incorporate more like more of our own culture with the general education. I guess it also goes to follow that I hope that a good kind of art education that could grow from Philippines is something that is not ignorant of our own culture, or who would not forget about studying our own and not only focus about what's happening outside. So I guess the answer to that would be like, what kind of artist does the school want to produce?
Speaking about all, as I'm listening to you and all the answers that you've been giving, and the fact that it's common objects and the fact that there's the idea of slowness, I'm wondering to what degree would you say either the pavilion or your own personal work can be attached to ideas about sustainability and ecological issues and the importance of everyday materials to the larger conversation of sustainability and art and ecology.
Thank you for your nice question. No, but I think that he has a point. I mean, I think if artists also move towards that direction of making sustainable art that's more conscious about the environment, I think. Yeah, eco-friendly.
And I think for us, it's easier to work with fabric and textile because if you compare it with like resin or like when you're painting oil paint, they're less toxic and they're much more easier to handle. Like you can carry them in the train.
Yeah, and if it doesn't get sold, you can bring it home and use it at home.
That's right.
Well, this is just a suggestion. Venice is a fantastic city for fabrics. Actually, that's why I came here now, because I'm trying to get some fabric for a piece of furniture in my home in Vienna. And there is a very famous factory here called Fortuny, but you can't actually see the factory because it's a secret. It's a trade secret. So you can go there, see the fabrics, and actually buy it or not. But by accident, yesterday, I discovered the oldest fabrics factory in Venice, in the Sestieri of Bevilacqua, in the Sestieri of Santa Croce. And I would suggest you to go there. It's fantastic. They are using still the jacquard looms. These are 400-year-old machines made with wood. 400 years, they're there. You have the photos of the old family. You have the first letter ordering fabrics for this factory in 1800 something. It's in a fantastic visit. It's very easy to find Bevilacqua factory in Venice, Santa Croce Sestieri. It's worth a visit. They're extremely friendly. You can see everything.
So we have to go back.
We only have until tomorrow.
We have to work, earn
So-
money.
You have to work on the next project?
Yes.
Or are you going to do a next collaborative project between you two? Or
Yeah.
are you going to take a break for the moment?
Maybe next time.
Maybe take a break.
We
for a
need to
while.
feel ourselves first.
So, are there any other questions? Is there anybody who wants to ask something else? No? Then I think we will close this table with this last suggestion by our guest. Leave you to eat and then go and see the factory. But before that, I want to thank you for coming here from Manila. Also, congratulations for being at this Biennale as 25-year-olds. I guess that's something really amazing. 24 and 25, right? And so thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing your conversation here. I know it's not easy. Always, and thank you to our guests for coming, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thankfully the sun came out.
Time to eat.